Alright, so if you've been watching my videos for a while, you've probably seen me using this one. This is that $5 Wish rod I had. And it actually turned out to be a really, really good rod, especially for an ultralight. I really like using it. But I've been having issues with it. First issue is the line has been fraying. And I've narrowed it down to the eyelets here. I haven't specified exactly which one it is yet, but I think the eyelets are wearing out. Actually, that could be it right there. It looks like some of the eyelets are wearing out because they're made out of plastic, and as they're wearing out, it starts fraying the line, and the line starts snapping off. So that's one issue I need to address. Another issue I'm having is the reel seat. It's locked down in place. It's a clamp reel seat, which these are real popular on eBay and Amazon because they're really cheap. And I've got another rod that uses one, and there's no issues with it. It works fine. This one in particular, it's the same exact model, but for whatever reason, it doesn't lock down. So I have to have a reel in there, a full-size reel in there, pushing back and giving it a lot of resistance, and then maybe it'll lock down. But the ultralight reels that I've been using on it, after a while, I have to slide them forward and lock it back into place again. So yeah, that's one issue I've had with it. So I've decided I'm going to strip this rod down. I'm going to take off the reel seat. I'm going to take off all the eyelets. And I'm going to fix everything in place so it's not a telescopic rod anymore. I'm going to turn it into a custom build solid one-piece rod. Anyway, my plan is for the ultralight, strip it down, take off the reel seat, take off the eyelets, take everything off of it, and basically turn it into a custom build. I'm going to use that as a rod blank. I'm going to put new eyelets, a new reel seat, a new rod handle, and everything. And but I'm not going to do it all like cheap and sloppy like I normally would, because I really like this rod. I want it to be something I can continue to use. But I also don't want to just jump into it and try to do it on the first try. So I wanted to get some practice. Leave me alone, dude. Wanted to get some practice on it, doing that kind of work before. So I've got another telescopic rod here that I've rebuilt this. I didn't do a video on rebuilding this because it was my first time doing it. It's pretty sloppy and ugly. As you can see, it's got the clamp down reel seat like I was talking about, but this one's a good solid reel seat. It doesn't move around. The issues I had with this rod was, I mean, as a rod itself, it was a fine blank. It held up pretty well, but it was really, really uncomfortable to use, and it hurt my arm after a while because the reel seat, instead of being up where it is right now, it was actually back here, almost like a fly rod where it's down at the end of the handle. And that's because the sections that collapse in on itself are about this long. That's about 8 to 10 inches long. And yeah, that's the whole thing. That it really just threw off the balance point. So I stripped off everything like I was planning on doing that. I stripped off all the eyelets and everything. The eyelets on this one were actually rusting out. I guess they weren't stainless after all. And I took the reel seat off and I moved it up over here. I found some old foam insulation, or, well, you know what, this is off of an old rod too. I cut it off, but it didn't quite fit. So I put it on there and I cut some more strips and put it down in the place inside there. And it looks sloppy, but it actually came out pretty well. And I got the Fuji eyelet replacement kit that they're at like all the academies. Came with the epoxy and everything and the thread. And I replaced all the eyelets on it and I wrapped it up. It was my first time doing it, so this is all real sloppy and ugly looking. And I actually ran out of thread, so on the end eyelet, which oddly enough, the eyelet replacement kit does not come with the end tip eyelet. So I took the eyelet that fell off of, it was actually off of my old pin rod. I don't know if you ever saw that. It had a real short little pin rod. And that eyelet fell off, but it didn't quite fit over there, so I smashed the eyelet down and just put it up flat against there and wrapped it up like that. So that worked out on it. There was one thing I didn't think about, and let's see if I can find one. This rod had these plain metal rings that I thought were just decoration. This one went right here where all this ugly gunk is built up. And it turns out these actually do have a function. I didn't realize it until I put this one together and I went out and tested it and I put it under a stress test. And the reason this piece here looks like it is because I didn't reinforce those sections where they met. Here's another one here. This one's got an eyelet, so that's reinforced. And then there's another one over here that's not reinforced. And in the stress test, since it didn't have that reinforcement, it just splintered. It fell apart, shattered. And I was able to put it back together just enough on here. And then I wrapped it up with some more line. Although this time I didn't use braided line. I was experimenting. I tried mono to see what would happen. I wrapped it with some real tight with some mono. I even put a new hook rest on there. All that was just trying to reinforce it so it doesn't come apart like that anymore. It doesn't break. And epoxied that. Same thing here. Just straight up mono with epoxy covering it. This one, these had a braided thread that came with them. They're wrapped up in epoxied. I don't know if you can see that, how it looks, but it looks okay with mono, but it doesn't blend together and meld together the way it does with the braid. Using braided line, the epoxy kind of absorbs the color and it looks like you put tape over it, but it's actually the epoxy, like this right here. It looks like it's one solid piece that's all been painted that color. But yeah, anyway, I didn't go over what I was doing on this one step by step like I normally would, because like I was saying, I was just practicing. It was really a throwaway rod that I pulled out of the trash. And after reinforcing it here, I think I've got it covered enough where that splintering has stopped and it won't break anymore. And it feels pretty good. These are bait casting eyelets that I've put on there, but I don't care. I mean, look at the eyelets that came on it. Look at the eyelets that came on this. This is listed as a spinning rod, and these are some of the smallest eyelets I've ever seen. So when you're pulling a rod out of the trash and rebuilding it, the difference between spinning and casting really doesn't matter. So I know there's a lot of purists out there that are throwing a fit. I still get a lot of hate comments because I did this before. I used a rod that was broken in half, and I temporarily fixed it and tested out a bait caster on it, and I got all kinds of hate for using a bait caster with a spinning rod. But like, how is that worse than the people that use spinning reels on a bait casting rod? So when you're pulling rods out of the trash, it doesn't make a difference if they're spinning or casting. So I'm going to continue using this as a spinning rod. I've got it set up. I've fixed it so it's no longer telescopic. Everything is locked in place. Everything's lined up nicely. I'm going to put one of my ultralights on here. Maybe the reel that I had on the other rod there, because that was an underspin trigger. So it also might work because it's kind of a casting. It's a casting and spinning reel, like a hybrid almost. So that's probably going to be the ideal reel for this. So I'm going to test it out on here. And basically with all that, since I've had some practice putting it together, I now know what not to do on this one for some of the things. So I'm gonna cut off the reel seat, take off the eyelets, and get them all replaced and make it look nice and new. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is pull off the eyelets. Now some of them, this one's already loose. Most of these on the ends here are easy to pop free and pop loose. But the one on the tip, super thin on there. I'm not sure if I'll be able to even get one to replace that with. But it's on there good. It's probably the only one they put on properly. So I'm going to get that off. And the way to do that is with a lighter. Just heat it up a little bit, but not too much. Because you heat it up too much, or if you burn the graphite or whatever the rod's made out of, it'll break off. So, and just like that, it came right off. Came off easy. Nice and clean. Didn't even bend the eyelet doing so. This eyelet, you probably can't see it there, but the bottom side of the eyelet's got a bunch of chips in it. The chips missing from it. So, dude, chill out. I hear you. Anyway, It's got a bunch of nicks and chips in it. That's probably what was fraying the line. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull off the rest of them, because if one of them's doing that, look at this one. This one just came right off too. If one of them's doing it, they're probably all gonna do it. Although this one looks like it's all right. I'm gonna do that. I'm just gonna replace them all anyway. These junctions here, where two pieces meet like that, yeah, that needs to be reinforced. So whenever I put the new eyelets on there, I have to make sure to wrap up and reinforce as much up on there as I can. I'm going to go ahead and leave that one in place, because that reinforcement there is saving the rest of the rod. Now what I'm going to do for the reel seat here, to get that off, you've got these black wraps right here. One in the middle there. It's threaded on and epoxied, but when you do that properly, it ends up looking like tape almost. And one of the pluses of doing that is, yeah, if you look real close, you probably can't see it, but if you look real close on top of that, the reel seat there, you can actually see the threading inside of it. And yeah, so just get a box cutter, razor blade, something real sharp with a handle, do it safely, and you can cut into that. And be very careful not to cut the blank or anything, but you can cut into that and remove stuff pretty easily. So that's what I'm going to do. Alright, now one thing about working with telescopic rods that makes them a little bit easier to work on than regular full-size one-piece rods is most telescopics at the end here have something you can screw off. Little cap that I just lost. And by doing that, I can collapse the rod, the rest of it, and pull it out through the bottom. That cap keeps all the rod components inside, and now I can work with just the handle and not have the other piece sticking out, bumping into everything and knocking stuff off my desk. Just gotta be careful. Just trying to cut through the epoxy and some of the line. I don't want to cut too far and end up cutting into the rod itself, or scratching the paint or the blank or anything, which so yeah, that came off. I only have a little bit of glue here to clean up, and some of the remaining thread, which isn't that big of a deal. I can get that off pretty easily because of the way this was epoxied. But I'm going to cover this with a different kind of handle anyway, so repainting it won't be that big of a deal. Alright, so I bought one of these cheap, this is probably the cheapest split grip on eBay. It's supposed to go, there's supposed to be the rubber piece here, and basically this fits on the end right there, and then the butt goes in on that end. This slips over the shaft. Actually, no, I'm wrong. This goes in there to kind of hide the shaft, or hide the rod, and so you can fix it on there better. Or either way, I mean, do whatever the hell you want with it, really. But cheapest split grip spinning reel seat on eBay, and basically I wanted to put it on here, and I've got the foregrip on there already. Not really a foregrip; it kind of sits behind the reel seat, but didn't quite fit on there. I put the rubber stop on there. Put the rubber stop on there where I wanted it to be, and I had to bore this out, because if you look at the hole there, that's how big around the hole is, and see the end of the rod, it's more than double that size. So I bored it out a little bit and slipped it on there and forced it down all the way to where I put this, where I needed it to be, and that's all lined up perfectly where this slips on like that. And take this piece off here real quick. Kind of like how it's got the diamonds in it too. I didn't realize that when I bought it, but that's kind of cool. You can see the end of the rod right there lines up perfectly with where the this piece would stop. So this ring here actually matches perfectly with the ring that's around the end of the rod there. So the rest of the rod should fit through perfectly. I've just got to epoxy this together, fix it in there. I'm going to put some tape around on there, on that end, to just to make it fit better and so it doesn't wobble around so much. Get everything nice and tight. Put some glue on here, slip it down in there so it doesn't move around. I'm actually going to just paint the whole rod and then get this fixed on there, and then start attaching the eyelets. So this was a really cheap spinning reel seat handle with grips, EVA foam, 4 grips, and I'll post links to everything if it's available on Amazon. Everything I use. So let me get to it. I'm gonna put the rod back together. I'm gonna cover this with painter's tape, and I'm gonna pick a color to paint it with. See how it comes out. Okay, I'm gonna try this one more time. Every time I start talking, a plane flies over real low because I live close to the airport, or I get a phone call or something. I'm recording on my phone right now. But anyway, I went ahead and put the original tip back on, but I taped it up so I didn't paint any of the tip because I wanted it to be that original color. And I hung it with some fishing line on an old eyelet, ran it through the old eyelet with the tape in there, and I painted it green. And I'm kind of using the light from the flash here to look for any uneven spots or any drips, and it actually looks pretty good. When it dries here, I'm going to do another coat. And I wanted to say another thing. I'm not really going into too much detail about what I'm doing or the kind of work that I'm doing, what I'm doing to it, because I'm not doing a how-to video. I'm not trying to teach anybody how to do this, because I'm learning myself. This is only my second time doing any kind of a rod repair work like this, really. So, as you saw previously, if you saw that other video, that's the closest I've come to doing this. So, I've taped everything up that I didn't want painted, and I painted it. I'm gonna let it dry, and then give it another coat. Hopefully, it's all even out. There's no drips, and then I'm gonna put the handle together, assemble it on there, glue it on there, and start wrapping the eyelets on there. And I haven't gone over the eyelets I got for it yet, but I got something special for it, so we'll get to that in a minute. Alright, so I'll get the reel seat components out of the way there, and I'm going to go over the eyelets I got. I got some special eyelets here. Now, if you've seen my videos before, you know I'm pro staff for American Tackle here. I got the American Tackle Airwave microwave guide system. These are really lightweight, so they should be perfect for an ultralight rod. Like there's almost no weight to these. And yeah, there's some information on them there. There's actually some extras in here. I don't need all of them. I just need this one's the main one that I'm going to be using. Get that wrapped up on there. This is number 2, and I think after the second one here, the rest are all the same. So I think it only needs 6 eyelets, including the tip. So I've got those 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to use one of these on the tip too. I'm just going to wrap it up on the end. So I've got 3 extras left over that I'm going to use for extra replacements and stuff. So this is all I need over here. Down here, these 6, 5 or 6, whatever. I got to recount. Look, I'm going to put 1 on each joint. This is designed that when you throw off of the off a spinning reel, the line unwraps off the spool, and sometimes it gets bigger and bigger until it hits the regular eyelets, and then the eyelets are what's supposed to, they basically close that loop, and it tightens up. This one, the way it's designed, the bigger part, or the big loop that's in the line flies through, and it basically funnels it down to a straight line, and it comes out a lot smoother, and you're supposed to be able to cast it a lot farther. And I've got a couple of rods already. I've got one spinning rod already that's got these on it, and then I've got a bait caster even that's got the microwave guides on it. And it kind of does the same thing with the bait caster. You've got the moving eyelet on the bait caster. It kind of helps out with that to get some better distance on it. Once the paint's done drying, maybe tomorrow or the next day when it's really dry, I'll get these all wrapped up and tied on there. Got some of that painter's tape. wrapped it around on there, and I wrapped it up just enough where it just perfectly fits in there, and there's no movement. It doesn't move at all. So there's that, and then yeah, that fits on there nicely. I can secure this into place. Probably put some glue on here, that way it fits into that. And yeah, that actually doesn't look too bad. The green almost matches the black on there. You can barely tell that it's green actually. And but yeah, it doesn't look too bad. I can roll it, I can turn it until I find a spot that looks good, and then just leave it alone. Like that looks good. And then I can line up the eyelets and everything with that. Right, out here at the river, I'm gonna do a bit of a reveal. First off, I got this one. This is my practice run that I did. You've probably seen it before, if you follow my channel anyway. It's probably about a 6-foot rod. It's the one I call the garbage rod because it looks all sloppy. But it's time for this one. This is the main one. This is the ultralight. See, there's a lot of parts I did on there. This is where it gets a little sloppy. I probably went overboard with the logos there, but that's all right. I think it actually came out pretty good, other than the overdoing it on the logos there. I'm impressed with the quality of this cheap handle. And for the most part, it came out pretty good. There's some drips in the handle where I sprayed too much, and there's some chips in the paint from where I've been scratching it. But other than that, it came out pretty solid. I like it. Let's get out here and see if I can catch a fish on it. I really do like the way it came out. Other than, I probably did the logos. I did too much with the logos. I put too many, and the ones I put were too big. But other than that, the knob here, I'm probably gonna have to trim it down. I don't have the tools to cut it down a little shorter because it's just too long. It sticks out too far. It's a little chilly today. It's probably about 60 degrees right now. Should be able to catch something. It might be a little cooler than 60. It might be around 50 to 60, somewhere in there. It's also a little bit foggy for the middle of the day, which is unusual. It's pretty cloudy and overcast, but I don't know. We are getting late into the evening, so I don't have a whole lot of time to fish. Hopefully I can just find something on a bed that I can trigger a bite with to bring in on this rod. It's all right. Oh, actually I had a bite right there. Okay, that's good. Oh, there we go. Got one. So, wow. The tip of my rod is not acting right. That was weird. Anyway, got me a little quad here. And it's actually pretty warm, so I guess the water is pretty warm. So, nice little quad on my custom build rod. I think the line wrapped around on here, like it is right now. Yep, that's what happened. The line was wrapped around, that's why I was acting like that. But I do need to put another eyelet right here, or maybe even 2 eyelets right here in this stretch, because it was bending way more than it should have been, and that might be why it wrapped around like that. But there we go. I can throw far. Yeah, okay, it was wrapped around the rod funny, and that's why I wasn't able to cast very far. Now I can cast a little bit farther, and now I need to fight a fish on it like this to see if it's See if that improved it. And I had to throw the fish out as far as I could because it's real shallow right here, but it drops off. So, and I'm gonna have to move this hook rest, which is dug into the paint, and chipped it out. And okay, yeah, this thing, as ugly as that's gonna be without this thing on there, that has to go. And it just broke anyway. Oh well. A lot of swirls and stuff over here, hoping it's a couple of bass or something chasing these bugs on the surface. Oh, there's some nibbles. Oh, didn't get him, but it definitely had some bites there. Got one. So small I didn't even know if he had it or not. I just saw him swipe at it. Well, pretty little fish. He's actually kind of fat for his size. Thanks for that, but it's not really testing out my rod. There we go. Nice, another little guad. They've all been guads today. Haven't seen anything else. All right, now I've gone up to the other small Runkle swim bait I have, which is a lot heavier, and it's a bigger profile, but it's really about the same size, and I can cast it a lot farther with not nearly as much effort. I see something right there that maybe I can get him. Not a bass though, it's another tilapia. That didn't work. Oh, got one there. That's a good challenge right there. It's a bass. But look at the way the rod's handling that. That's the way the rod's supposed to act. There we go. That's what I was looking for today. And I was actually trying to snag a tilapia right now. I just got this. Right about a pound on this ultralight. He fought it pretty hard, but it didn't do all the crazy bends like that other one did. So that's the way it should be. It's a good little bitty quad. Not as biggest one of the day for sure, but that's what I was looking for. Good bend on the rod. Oh. Chill. Trying to get it out of your mouth, but you're stuck. There you go. Needed to switch hands there. Nice fish. He caught me off guard too, and then pulled hard, especially for his size. And that tilapia didn't move, it's still there. It acted different than it did before, so having some real eyelets on it makes a big difference. That's the main reason I wanted to upgrade it right there. Because it's still an ultralight, but now I can fight bigger fish with it and not worry about it. Because the old eyelets, they were rubbing on the line, they were getting rough, they were snapping the line off, and that happened a couple of times. So that was awesome. Alright, so there you go. It's kind of dark, barely can't even see my rod anymore, but it worked, and it actually worked pretty well, and I'm pleased with myself there. And I just figured out how this thing was. Okay. I know what happened earlier when it twisted up funny. Let's see here. Alright. Do this. Had to remove the hook rest, but that's alright. Other than that, this thing actually handled itself pretty well, and I'm very pleased with it. And I think I'm just gonna leave it alone instead of removing those ugly logos and stuff I did. Thought they were gonna work out, but it didn't work out. Anyway, thanks for watching, and see you next time.